The modern practices of the video game industry make me ashamed to have supported this form of media for as long as I have. So, because I'm a glutton for punishment, especially considering the fallout that occurred last time I did this, I think it's time I drop some more blunt force trauma on why modern video games still suck. A little over a year ago, I released a video voicing my concerns and disapproval of practices within the modern video game industry. If you haven't seen it, then maybe take a look to catch up, but the main points to take away from it were that I'm not a fan of yearly releases, or the fact that so many games are almost identical these days, as well as the general mass saturation and overhype that ultimately hurts everything. The one thing I intentionally didn't go into was the indie scene, something I'm avoiding here once again, simply because that's the fucking Wild West really. There is far less quality control, so they can get away with a lot more. AAA studios and all the big boys have nowhere to hide, but that's where my message got lost in translation last time. Everyone took the title of the video so personally and literally that it completely overshadowed the video itself, and I'd wager people finding this and not watching it will leave a basic simple-minded comment saying things like, "No, they never sucked," before going and moaning to their friends that Call of Duty keeps matching them up with players who've paid to win. So to that point, let's talk business practices. There are so many ways developers and publishers can raid your wallet these days. Loot boxes, DLC and pay to win are the big three. I honestly never had a problem with downloadable content, which I'm sure is an unpopular opinion. I don't care if that content is already locked on the disc at launch. If it's good content worth my time and money, I'm more than happy to chuck some extra money down. Loot boxes and item drops were never really my thing, but I can see the appeal. It's gambling, which can be fun, and if you get an item you like, then no harm done. Pay to win, on the other hand, sucks. It's like entering a cheat code at the end of the day, one that really begs the question why you're even playing in the first place. But that's appealing to some people, so whatever, that's fine. What isn't fine is when money is put down for any of these services and what you get back isn't worth it. And that's become a big problem recently. What you get for putting down more money is of so much less value than what it once was, and as soon as that perfect balance of cost versus quality becomes lopsided, then it's no longer worth it. Especially when the only purpose it ever served was life support until the next sequel was released. That was my other major point last time, is that modern titles, AAA, and even more so with your precious indie games, is that nothing has longevity anymore. Shelf life has been phased out of existence alongside the popularity of physical releases. Actually being able to hold the thing you spent money on, put it in your system and play it, is something mainly reserved to collectors, while the vast majority move to digital as it's much more convenient. So tell me, how on earth did all of these mini consoles suddenly blast into popularity? They have existed since the early 2000s with Atari Flashback and Sega Genesis Minis, but nobody gave two shits until Nintendo did it. What a shocker. The Nintendo bias is real, ladies and gentlemen. They seem to have a fan base of dick-riding sheeple within their hype department. And that's coming from a Nintendo fan, by the way. I've actually got the NES and SNES classic editions myself. But to be honest, I fucking hate everything these baby toys promote. Well, actually, that's only half true. I completely understand why these are so popular. You get some of the best games ever made that are still fun to this day, inside some plastic that you can plug into your modern high-definition TV. And on top of that, you may get a game that was never released originally. Now that is fucking cool. Do that more often please, or if not, let me plug the thing into the internet and pay money for the rest of the Donkey Kong Country trilogy. It's nostalgia pandering, which is another big piss off of mine, but that's why I want one, which is a shame considering I can't simply add to the collection by paying more money. But no, my problem with these things, aside from all of the cheap cash-ins following them, is just the overhype. Yeah, the games are good, but Christ almighty, you don't have to start stomping cunts at GameStop and blow such a disgusting load over it, but people do, because all of the games included on these things are all classics, all games that have stood the test of time. So to my point about shelf life, in years to come when the PS4 and Xbox One minis are released, how many genuinely solid titles are they going to include that you'll actually care enough about to pour another 10, 20, 50, or even 100 hours into? I think I've made my point clear on this one. These things are money because the games on here are money games. The fact that a new release in 2017 drops to half price just 2 weeks after release is a prime showcase of that. Meanwhile, myself as a retro collector can't even go near Nintendo's 30+ year library because it's all still worth the price of gold. And that's because Nintendo make good shit. Let me just say that earlier this year, I made a video moaning about how Nintendo's strong focus on innovation and separation from a hardware point of view distracted them from innovating with their games. Well, I'm so happy to report that they've changed my mind completely. What a strong year they've had! I haven't played any of their major releases, but I don't need to. It's all some of the best shit of the last 5 or even 10 years. Myself, the big fucking cynical asshat, actually came close to purchasing a Switch on the release of Mario Odyssey. Now, I didn't because there honestly aren't too many Switch games that interest me, but I'm still glad to eat my words on this one while still standing firmly by my past opinions. They're officially outdated. Let's just hope that they can keep it up. But that brings me to one of my other issues. I absolutely love the idea of the bigger name franchises getting their major release every 5 to 10 years because they always deliver and will continue to have shelf life moving forward. The only problem is that that scenario is the minority, the clear 1%, while everyone else puts something out year after year. Hell, even some boring, unimaginative ideas from that 1% to hold you over in the meantime. And it points to a lack in creativity. With so many games coming out, you start to see a lot of repetition, reused assets and tired development models. It's reached a point of every game feeling the same. For example, these are the primary 4 genres of game that pop into my feeds all over the internet. Of course there are more, but these are the mainstream I've seen all year. Platformers, obviously there is an inherent bias to that one, first-person shooters like Call of Duty and Destiny, open-world games like Breath of the Wild, Witcher, Horizon, Skyrim, GTA and Red Dead, and finally, to top it off, hard games. Yeah, you know what I mean. Insert game title here is the new Dark Souls. Oh boy, I'll get back to that in a minute. So if they're the big 4 that I see as a casual fan, as casual as you can be when your entire existence literally revolves around it, I truly do feel burnt out. I'm sick of the same boring gameplay mechanics, set pieces, and oh my god, all of these games passing up fun gameplay for gripping, blockbuster stories because that's what's hot. People don't want games, they want interactive movies, so take all the good shit out and slow it down. And it's not like I don't enjoy this kind of game, I just don't like that it's consumed such a large chunk of the industry. It's almost poetic that at one point in time, the oversaturated market collapsed and essentially killed itself, but now, 30 years later, what doesn't kill it only makes it stronger. Last time I did this, the amount of people commenting, "Oh, but this particular game isn't like that, it stands out. If you want something new and original, try Bloodborne from the developers who brought you the same game 3 times in a row now. Oh, but Overwatch has the best first-person shooter community, and totally isn't filled with all the same children who moved over from Call of Duty. Wow! The Last of Us is amazing!" Firstly, you might want to Google search the word objectively and start fucking thinking that way. Secondly, don't get me started on The Last of Us. And finally, you'd better get your triggered fingers ready because you're going to love my final point. So many people out there tend to think that these games are somehow beacons of hope for the entire industry, yet they're all games overhyped and oversaturated by their respective communities and covered to complete nauseam in videos on YouTube. These games are not that fucking special, I'm sorry. If something is good, people blow it out of proportion as the greatest thing ever made, which communicates to the people making the games that they don't have to try as hard to succeed. While at the same time, if a game is just okay or even good, nope. It's cancer, the worst game ever made. Low scores all around, which people think is like a 6 out of 10. Newsflash, that's a solid score. So now that mindset demands a higher quality, conflicting with the overzealous hype to create impossible expectations. Hype is really only there to blind us, and guess what? It's all on us. The fact that the biggest selling point I ever saw for Uncharted 4 was the inclusion of Boulder Dash from Crash Bandicoot because it's got those fucking nostalgia clicks is just sad. Yes, all the marketing of these games is based on trying to generate a buzz. We're all targets in the crosshairs of companies trying to sell their games, but we give them what they want. We feed into it and blow everything out of proportion instead of not letting them control us like puppets on string. But look at the Uncharted 4 example, which was not a part of the marketing for that game in any way, shape or form. That's just the internet thinking it's clever and leaking shit, but all it did was grow that hype beast even more. And we all know what hype does to these games. It ruins them. We come to expect this unattainable level of quality and then get burned every single time. Or, if you've got no impartial bone in your body, that shit is just the greatest. A good example of this is the N Sane Trilogy. Those of us who remember a time when games were inherently difficult and also provided some genuine criticism and concern up until release, helped to shape its final polish into possibly one of the greatest remakes of all time, while everyone else who held it to the highest praise before release and accepted nothing else are all the ones who had the worst experiences and complaints at the end of the day, because all you could do was get offended on behalf of a piece of media designed to take your money, and you forgot that challenging was never a game genre. It was free day one DLC. Since when did actual challenge in a video game predetermine its genre, marketing, and player reception? Hard games are maybe the single worst trend to come out of the modern industry. All of a sudden, we've got all these games that are designed to kick your ass. But back in the day, games kicked your ass regardless until you got good. There was skill involved. You play the game, you get good, you learn its secrets, and now those experiences you once thought were impossible are now a laid-back, relaxing few hours. That's the sign of quality media. It can make you grow, but now instead it's all about those clicks. Games journalism is far from journalism anymore. As long as you can write clickbait, you're in the club. There is no integrity because it's easier to say this game is like Dark Souls because that's universally understood. And with such a lame-brained approach, it's much more approachable by an audience to repeat and share on social media to generate even more hype for it. Cuphead is a game I've had a lot of fun with this year. Yes, technically an indie title, but one that's reached the mainstream attention next to AAA franchises. As much as I love the game, it and all the other games designed to kick your ass completely miss one of the golden rules. I call it the Incredibles rule. If everyone is special, then no one is. If your entire game is that special part of the journey towards an end goal, the trials and difficulty spikes we face that give us moments to remember, then really, it's not all that special when you really think about it. What makes games great, such as the great games arriving on mini consoles that we still love 20 or 30 years later, is that it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. It was once about struggling to beat a level and that feeling of accomplishment when you finally beat it, but now it's all about the destination. Why do you think pay to win is so popular? Just get me through as quickly as possible at any cost. And to that, who even cares about the games anymore, right? All we want is the reviews, to see what people are saying. Nothing has shelf life anymore because they're not designed to have it, but also because we're always looking for the next destination. We consume this stuff so quickly and move on, leaving it in the dust amongst a path of destruction, with overhype, toxic fanboyism, and even blatant attacks against anyone, any dev team, publisher, franchise, online personality, anyone that people can spew their venom at, and the industry loves it. They want this stuff to happen because any publicity, any conversation, any kind of hype is ultimately profitable. So because of all of these shady practices and this consumer mentality that is ingrained in our culture now, they're continuously fueling each other in a vicious cycle that only hurts the main thing both parties want to succeed: the video games. The games never sucked, okay? Even the worst games in existence still have their place, because the bad shit makes the good shit look even greater. The problem lies within the practices of the industry, and more importantly, in my opinion at least, the modern consumers of this media. Us. You. Me. Your friends, your family, your favourite YouTube personalities, your favourite YouTube people without personalities, because that's quite a large percentage honestly, and of course your news sources. The fact that I can't simply make an opinion piece on the topic without it contributing to the overall problem here just really upsets me. Now, the quality of the games is always going to be a factor, but when people literally lose their minds at every single thing, it does my fucking head in. The amount of ignorance and unwilling to listen and think, and instead just fucking act out like spoiled children is simply disgusting. And combining this never-ending loop of toxicity with an industry driven by our money, constantly feeding us hype and new things regardless of quality, then more new things, and even more new things, and the old things you still want, and then even more new things. Video games are ADHD entertainment in this modern age, and it fucking sucks. With everything moving at such a rapid fire rate, nothing has time to sink in anymore, making so many more of these games completely forgettable, and quite honestly, the worst part about it is that we've let this happen. We've fed this monster and allowed it to grow out of control by jumping in early to vote with our wallets instead of our brains. But before we can even get to that decision, we've already voted with our online presence and in a lot of cases, practically told them that they own us. And they do own us. Now, the rebuttal to that statement, of course, is that this mob mentality has achieved some impressive things over the years, whether for better or worse, or even by appropriate means, and that's powerful. I just wish we could harness that and use it, not in a selfish manner just to get what we want, but use it in cooperation and understanding with what the industry needs to succeed, and bring us out of this clusterfuck circus we all play a part in. But I don't see it happening, honestly, because people have no self-control and no ability to view the world critically or objectively. This video and its predecessor were never about trying to change anyone's opinions or views, or incite more injurious, apparently unwarranted hatred for any game, franchise, company, or individual. It was merely a plea from myself to all of you saying, please, stop making modern games suck. God, I can't wait to see what spawns in the comments section, so please, if you've got a response of approval or disapproval, be sure to let me know with a comment down below, and if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe and share. I'm Square Eye Jack, and I hope you have a great fucking day. Thanks for watching.